Well, it's always concerned me. I actually kept buying knock sensors because they kept testing poorly. Okay, so as you know, I'm going to work on my Nissan Frontiers knock sensor. I've been very frustrated. I've bought sensors, not just one, knock sensors from Japan, made by Hitachi. I've even tried Chinese junk ones. They all appeared to be junk because they're supposed to have, like, say, 560 ohms. Alright, because it is so freezing and I used up all my time finding where I hid the knock sensors that I bought a year ago. I've been avoiding this project. I'm not going to have time to install them the right way today, so I'm actually going to do the hack repair where I install it on top of the intake and hook it into the wiring harness. It's supposed to still pick up knock, just not as well. I'm supposed to get 1 to 3 miles per gallon better. I could really use that right now. Miss driving the motorcycle and it being so cold. But this wiring harness on the proper Hitachi Japanese one, it actually goes on. Okay. Now if you look at the Chinese one, it doesn't even fit. It's got a completely different shape. So while I think this metal tab would work if you ground these off, this is no good. So don't buy the cheap one, buy the right one. Kind of an obvious video to do, but I was very surprised that when it was listed for my truck that it didn't even fit the wiring harness. Okay, so I've got my 2 knock sensors, the good one from Japan made by Hitachi, which tested as garbage, and the Chinese one that I bought because I wasn't going to make waste any more money on the Japanese one when it didn't have the right values. My knees were cold, so I got out a heating pad and it gave me an idea. So let's take a look. Okay, so I heated them up above room temperature, and the right one should be ground. You don't even need to install this wire on the wiring harness. It'll work without. Got the ohms in the shot? Mm-hmm. Thanks, honey. Okay, so that goes straight to ground. And the left one should be between 500 and 600 k ohms. And that is 561. It varies depending on the temperature. But that's finally a good sensor. It just had to be quite warm for it to have the correct value. Always pay attention and think, am I changing the temperature of a part? If I'm changing the temperature of a part, the ohms are going to change and it'll throw off your test. So the right side on the Chinese one is ground, and the left side is 530 something ohms, or k ohms. Alright, I finally have good sensors. I can finally get this done. Now, the only thing is I've wasted so much time on this. I've lost my warm moment where the sun is up this afternoon. With it going down to 16 degrees again, I can't face those temperatures working outside like I do, at least at home. So I'm actually going to give you guys a treat and show you the very popular hack way to install this, where you put it on top of the intake, you route it into the wiring harness, and that will get it working, and then I can just restore the wire when I have time to pull the intake and install it correctly. And the extra treat that we'll get out of that is, even though it turns out there's another problem with this Chinese sensor, or the only real problem that I can tell, is that the wiring harness doesn't fit. There's these 2 ridges here that shouldn't be. I'm going to grind those off just to find out if you guys can get a good reliable knock sensor for, say, 13 bucks versus something that's $40 to $90. If I see no difference in the live sensor traces, we'll call it good. Now, the catch on that is there's, even with a dealer level scan tool I could probably borrow at work to check, these knock sensors typically just say retarding or not. It can be very difficult to tell. Now, I do have a cheat up my sleeve. Inside the Torque app, it will detect knock. So I could attempt to get a little bit of knock by raising up my timing too much and seeing if this knock sensor actually picks up and retards timing. It might be difficult, but I'd like to prove that this works so you guys can save 50 bucks or 80 bucks or whatever it is, depending on where you get your Japanese Hitachi part, online or at the store. Of course, I have the sensor code that I have a knock sensor failure. It's pretty much going to be your knock sensor. But let's just make sure the sensor is getting fed the correct 5-volt reference. So this is going to this. I pulled off this sensor right here, or this harness piece right here. Key on, engine off. And I'm testing the yellow and white wire on the top. It looks gray, it's dirty, but from there on one lead that way, or you can use your power probe, which is easier, but I left mine at work. And it should have, it has a 12-volt reference. Okay, it has a 12-volt reference. That's not what I saw in the database. Better recheck my facts. There's plenty of extra spots to put things on this engine with M6x1 bolts. Just pick one, and I picked this one because it's quite close to where it needs to plug in. And just make sure you have a clean ground with the wire brush, or my cheap quick way to work. And that's wire wouldn't normally be there. It's not stock, it's extra ground wire. Like in my spark plug and extra secret shush video. And of course, keep your wire out of the way so you don't damage that while you're at it. Though I think I already have to get into the box or go to AutoZone and trade a couple of these out because they look like they're starting to leak. You can see some damage, some glazing on the side of the wires, like they're going out on me. Especially look where they touch each other. As much as possible, don't have them touching, but it's kind of impossible not to. Back up the knock sensor though. He's not plugged in. Nope. These are really stiff when it's cold and it gets in your way. Okay, so I was just not connected. Should show negative 12 volts since I am backwards with my leads. Okay, and it should, now that I switched leads, if the right one is ground, it should test 12 volts with that being ground, testing against my positive. Okay, so the right one is ground. I don't need that one. And set that off to the side. And this left side of the knock sensor, therefore, needs to hook into this yellow one. Okay, I got my electrical work cut out for me now. Okay, it took a bit of fiddling, but I managed to get the green insert started to come out. Because once this green piece is out, and right now my brother's probably texting me, so you keep vibrating, I apologize. But now that green piece is out, I should be able to slide out this wire that I need. Okay, actually pulled back the wire harness a bit, and I have gotten some heat shrink tubing. I might have a little bit too much heat shrink tubing. Yeah, I have too much. This heat shrink tubing I know looks big, but it's the only one that fit over the connector. I plan on doing this as a feed the new wire into the harness, the fancy way, but I can't get the wire out, so I'm cutting it, getting the heat shrink in place, getting my pinch piece in place, all to fit inside here. It's just so cold, my fingers don't work. Use my flashlight, see that the wires are in there, so when they pinch they'll attach. Okay, that's attached. And I actually have a better heat shrink plan at the moment than I did before. That's to slip it up this side and then back over. That's about twice as much as I need. So go. And some of you might fare better with wire strippers. I find those always break, so I just very gently work and pull. By the way, ordering this sensor with the wiring harness is actually exceptionally difficult. It's very hard to find. Nope, the internet forum told me wrong. I have literally cut my wiring harness and set a new code by following the internet's advice for which wire was that ran the knock sensor. I feel like an idiot. As usual, I struggle with these a bit. I had to try it a few times before it would hold into place. But basically, I did a spade, well, I call it that, female quick connect, male quick connect, 16 to 14 gauge. Basically, I just took a couple of these, well, more than a couple, until I had success. But I got those put together, and I put it into the wiring right here. That this I tested, and when I pulled this apart, this part was actually what was showing the voltage for the knock sensor. It wasn't coming from this side, it was coming from this side. So that means I knew that I needed to splice in the knock sensor on this side so that I could cut the old knock sensor out of it. And now that things are tested up, I'm going to go ahead and tape this. If I ever wanted to restore this, it would be really easy. Because it's blade to blade like that, if I ever wanted to put the knock sensor into the original position, I have time, it's not freezing outside and such, then what I can do is I can just put another blade connector on here, hook it to there, wrap it, and it'll be a very safe connection for a very long time. This is not exactly a moving part. It's quite safe. This guy, my heat gun's at work, so I couldn't heat him on, but a few drive cycles it might help. Maybe, maybe not. We'll see how hot that gets. But I ended up putting the knock sensor right here, and I tell you, I can't believe it, but the engine already runs so much smoother. It must have been, they say that you get 1 to 3 miles per gallon better with the knock sensor. I can't wait. Obviously not this gas tank. I ran the engine a lot just to not freeze to death in between parts of the repair, because it helped heat up my garage space here. I can't get this truck all the way into the garage, otherwise I can't work on it, because it puts me right against the shelving over there. But yeah, I like it when I work on smaller cars in the winter, because then I can put a space heater in here and close the door. But yeah, this looks like it's going to work. Is it ideal? Is it perfect? No. But understand that the knock sensor's true location is just down underneath here. Okay, down in that space. And I don't see how it could do too terrible of a difference between one and the other. Sound carried as vibrations through metal. It might be a bit slower, a little more medium to travel through, but still the result should be identical vibration in hertz, so long as there's not anything in the way. Now, since this was built at the same time as a Nissan Frontier with a supercharger that was making a big old rattle up here, they may have needed the knock sensor that deep, because that, by the way, even stock would set off the knock sensor on these trucks. So if you have a supercharged engine, this might actually be a solution for you. A lot of the guys in the forums actually put their knock sensor way far away from the supercharger just to get it to do better. This would actually put it closer to the supercharger if the supercharger was in place, and the bouncing of it, the vibrations of it, actually set off the knock sensor, retard timing, so the supercharged guys actually have less power than we do if they don't modify the knock sensor in some way. So a little bit of egg on the Nissan Frontier, Nissan engineer's face for how that worked out, I guess. But speaking of egg on face, I found the first, what I thought was a white and gray wire, and it turned out to run the idle air control. And then I looked again at what position it was supposed to be, and it was opposite of what I thought it was. This one on the bottom, and it comes out the bottom, the back over here. This one on the bottom here, my battery's too dead to run the light, so I have to run a flashlight. This bottom wire right here is the correct wire. You just want to filter it in on the back side over here. This actually, top left one, is actually the power to run the idle air control valve. So I actually had to do the wiring twice. That's why I didn't do a real good job of recording and showing. Because that when I messed up, I I had to get it done. It's so freaking cold out here. Okay, let's take a look how she is. Drove her on a couple of errands, and let's see. Did we take care of the knock sensor code, which, by the way, should come back instantly? Now, one thing that I found a little disturbing is I read that since this code P0328 referred to a high voltage, that, if it was like towards 5 volts, it would set the code. It was actually only about 2 volts. But it says it's okay, so I guess that's it. I'm not going to actually post this video until I still have a thumbs up after a couple of drives, because even though that code should come up immediately, it was very odd that the voltage on it with key on, engine off, was actually close to the right range. So that makes me wonder if the knock sensors actually was sometimes working. Yeah, it was a little bit of a surprise in the wiring there. Guys, get out there and work on something. 1 to 3 miles per gallon? Wow, in a third of a year. That should pay for this knock sensor and the associated wiring bits for itself in just 3 months.